It's bad. Anime.
Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the show where we decide, is this anime
anime
bad?
bad?
Now, Rob, what anime are we talking about today?
Today we're having a little fun. Today we're going over 2018's mecha anime, Darling in the Franxx.
Yes, Darling in the Franxx.
I don't remember how this one came up, but I feel like we've been talking about doing this one since this podcast inception.
You know why it came up? I think I asked you, which may have contributed to the start of this podcast. I asked you one time, I was on TikTok a lot, and I was like, oh, who is that?
Right,
Like,
yes.
what's that dance trend with that girl in the red suit? And she's like dancing back and forth, and like everybody's into that.
Wow.
And you were like, oh, that's from the show called Darling in the Franxx, and I've seen it. And I'm like, oh, is it good? And you're like, well,
Yeah. Thank you. I genuinely forgot about that. And she was everywhere at one point. This is if I'm gonna guess, you can help me on the dates because you're way better at the TikTok than I am.
Sure thing.
Obviously. But yeah, I think it became a trend. Early 2020?
it was like early 2020 to mid 2020.
Yeah.
It kind of fizzled out. I think I see one video every maybe like few days on it now. So
Right.
it's definitely like not a
But
a
it used
thing
to be
anymore.
everywhere, and her face and doing that little dance used to be everywhere.
It used to be literally everywhere. And we're talking about like, of course, 02.
You were talking about
It
Zero
became
Two.
such like a weird cultural phenomenon.
She almost became like
an.
an unofficial weeb mascot for a little while.
She really did.
And it confused me only because at that point the show was 2 years old.
Right.
So I
Very
remember
recent.
now being just confused because it's recent, but at the same time it was a couple years ago. I'm like, why is she having this resurgence now in popularity?
When did you first start watching Darling in the Franxx? When did you finish it?
Funny
rather?
enough, right before this is gonna sound so hipsterish, but like maybe a couple weeks before the trend started, because
Oh, okay.
yeah, because my big anime resurgence in 2020, as a lot of people had
Yeah, right.
their 2020 anime revivals, that happened with me. So I'm gonna say, if I had to guess, I would say April of 2020.
Okay.
Maybe May, maybe even March. Let's go as early as March 2020. It's when I sat down and watched Darling.
Okay.
I
interesting.
was aware of it just because I was constantly on like the lookout for more modern mecha.
I know, because I know, like, if anybody hasn't like figured this out yet, Rob is a big mecha anime guy. So you like your mecha, you like your big robots, you like your ladies and the robots.
About if you hear a little laughter in Bounty's voice right now, because he's looking over my shoulder, where he literally sees like 15 Gundam model kits standing there.
A modest collection, but a collection nonetheless.
I forgot I moved those. we did I did some rearranging in our recording studio, my bedroom, and so yes, the Gundams are literally.
We're like a couple SoundCloud rappers recording in the bedroom.
I would spit rhymes, but I'm incapable. Yeah, but yeah, so the Gundams are right behind me. I'm a big mecha guy. I grew up watching a fair amount of Gundam. One of my favorite anime of all time is a Gundam series. So I wanted to get more attached to mecha. And funny thing is, so I watched this show in 2020. I watched another mecha recently because I'm not a great anime fan, it turns out, because I did the whole watched anime on and off for 10 years thing and never got around to watching Evangelion. So that's a big oops on my part. And the reason I have to bring up Eva, everybody, is I could go on all day making comparisons between Darling in the Franxx and Eva. Everyone's done it. But Mr. Weigel has not seen it yet, so out of respect to him, and also so I don't sound too much like a rambling idiot, I'm going to try to hold back on all the Eva comparisons.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, but definitely, like, I haven't seen Evangelion, so I do want to watch it at some point. But I
Yes.
find it very fascinating that I have watched this Darling in the Franxx before I've watched Evangelion, because I feel like it gets so many comparisons to
Yes.
Eva. And
I did the same thing.
And I'm sitting here like, oh, okay, well, like it's exactly like this other thing, but I haven't seen the other thing.
Exactly.
But you have,
Yes.
and it's one of your favorite anime of all time.
Yes, it's funny because I mentioned incessantly, our very first episode 0, was about Hikaru, which is still I still call it my favorite anime of all time. But if that's 1A in my favorite anime, Eva is now my 1B. Like they're in a dead heat. I freaking adore Evangelion. For a ton of reasons, and I'm sure I'll talk about it more. I'll give that its own forum on another day. But today we're talking about Darling. So
yes.
So let's just start off and for the record, I watched the show in 2020. Bouncy, if I'm correct, did you finish the show this morning?
I finished. I finished episode 24 of Darling in the Franxx this morning.
So you're coming in hot.
I know everything, and I know all of the character names. No problem.
Good.
I love me some Futoshi. So
Okay, guys, to pull you guys behind the curtain a little bit. Right before we started, I just kept name dropping character and scenarios. I'm forgetting the characters' names. I just said the guy who did this, the guy who did that, and
I was like, oh, you mean Zorome?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean oh God, what is her name again? She has purple hair until she doesn't. It's
Ikuno.
Ikuno. Yeah. Nice.
You reminded me of that 10 minutes ago. We're coming in hot. I guess we should talk about what this show is about.
So okay.
If we can.
How do you even start? I mean, I finished watching it this morning, and so for me personally, the end of anything is a very emotional moment for me.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The end of anything like that I'm watching. I could watch the entirety of Friends. I could watch the last episode of any sitcom, Cheers. I watch the last episode of Naruto. No matter what the hell I watch, the last episode gets me very emotional.
Right.
Even if it is not even a particularly fun ride that I've been on.
Okay.
Darling in the Franxx, the ending got me kind of emotional. I felt a bit emotional at the end.
Okay.
And the thing that this show did in total for me was that it did so much without doing that much of anything.
That's a very interesting point.
That is kind of my big, because there was so much going on in every episode, but except there wasn't. Because when you boil it down, because you have everything, right? There's there's 10 love quadrangles in this entire show. That's number one.
Yeah, I'll do a deep dive in that in a minute.
There's the Doggystyle robots. That's number two. There's like the talk about humanity. There's like the themes of all of these interesting concepts. And yet you have an episode where they're doing laundry. It's like they did it, and all of those things got across.
Right.
It was too much, and it feels like I got from point A to point B blind.
It's like you just drunkenly wandered from the start of the story towards the conclusion and not sure how you got there. I completely understand that.
Every episode at the first 5 started with some sort of. Also, the name is so dumb. Klaxosaur attack. I mean, like,
yes, our baddies, our kaiju that we need to defeat.
Yes, our klaxosaurs.
Yeah,
and
klaxosaurs,
every episode started with a klaxosaur attack, and I was like, okay. But I mean, if we want to take it from like, what's the show about? Could you say in a sentence what the show is about?
Essentially, what it's about is that they built this little scenario where where all of humanity is like stuck in these they call them plantations, I believe, but they're just like these giant mobile cities,
right?
And there's like these monsters, klaxosaurs, running around a nearly barren Earth.
Exactly.
And they're running around causing a muck. Humanity is retreated into these safe little bubbles, but they train kids to get in these giant robots to fight them off. That I'd say is the generally speaking, our setting and what's going on. And it's just great because these kids have to pilot these robots. As you mentioned, the control scheme it has to be in a male and female. We learned.
Yes, it's a piston and something else. A stamen, piston and stamen.
Yep.
Piston is the dude. Stamen is usually the female.
Right. Yes. But the thing is, instead of having a scheme that makes sense, they something we're gonna touch on. One of the show's theme is sexuality.
Yes, big theme.
So they basically have the two people pilot and look. It looks like they're having sex because the girl has to be on all fours with the controller on her back.
Yes,
as the dude is riding the girl. And the girl is like on all fours, moving other parts of the robot. That's how they control this thing. That's how it was designed.
You know what I will say, though? I will say that the beginning of this show presented a lot of weird things to me. It presented a lot of things that I didn't think I was going to get used to over time.
Okay.
Notably the control scheme of like them doggy styling. And also the, oh my God, what was the other thing that like caught me by? Oh, the idea of like 02 like tasting people and stuff like that and like licking people. And of course like the relationship of like 02 and Hero is like one of the biggest points in the show.
Right.
But eventually those things by the end of the show, I wasn't really like as shocked anymore
Really?
as things
Nice.
kept going, because as it kept going, it was at first I was like, what the hell is that? But over time, I was like, okay.
Okay, so you were immersed, I guess you could say.
I got immersed. Much like Hero was in the back of 02 the whole time, but I was immersed. I was immersed in it. I mean,
okay, I understand.
I never stopped thinking why that was designed that way, even after the Dr. Franxx episode, and he explained it why.
Dr. Franxx, the guy who built all these things,
Right.
eventually the scientist comes in and says, "I designed these, and here's why, and
Yeah.
here's how we're gonna save humanity."
And I think that episode was very helpful. To me.
That was an episode later in the series, which basically served as a lot of the exposition.
Yes.
It was a big exposition dump. It almost like episode like 18 or 19.
It was like 18 or 19. I think it might have been 18.
This series is only 24 episodes.
Yeah.
So they had a big exposition dump very late in the series, which I remember my first watch of this, and I remember saying to myself, bold to wait that far into the series to do that exposition dump. And then I watched Evangelion, and they had a very similar episode. I'm like, okay, now I know what you're doing. I'm sorry, I know. I'm pulling back.
Get back.
Sorry, bad weeb.
But let's talk about just like the show overall. What was the cadence of the show to you? What was your like? How did you go through it? Were you happy did you have a good time? Then you had a great time. Then you had a weird time. Then you had a bad time. Or like, how did you travel through the show emotionally?
Okay, I definitely went on an emotional journey with the show.
Yes.
Because I came into the show with kind of weird expectations, because Funimation did a very good trailer for the show. However, their trailer presented it as way darker than the show actually was. It was a very serious, very grim, dire situation, and they accomplished this in my mind because they didn't show the mechs until like the very last frame, and it was very brief. Which brings me to one of my points. As a mecha guy, I have to talk about the mechs, and these are the silliest goddamn robots I've ever seen. I mean, I get what they were trying to do. Okay, no, I don't.
Let me stop you right there. Even as like a person that's not even huge into mecha anime, they were dumb. Objectively dumb. They were all so stupid.
Sorry, I was drinking something and I was in a spit take.
Mainly because the faces of the mechs were like actual faces. Were human faces.
That they emoted.
Which is so just doofy.
Though
I guess it kind of fit like the emotion of it all, and like when they would have something I also noticed, like because the female in this scenario becomes the robot.
Yes.
So it's like when they're communicating, like between, for example, a Goro and an Ichigo, he's communicating with this robot through his like teleprompter.
Yes,
he's not communicating with Ichigo because Ichigo is just getting railed.
Yes.
So he's communicating with this robot in the middle.
Right.
And that is what really just confused the hell out of me, because they also in these mechs, even as, again, not a mech guy, they didn't really explain what exactly they do, and what their capabilities are, and like, sure, like 02 and Hero at one point, they just love each other so much that they pull out a huge sword out of fucking nowhere and stab 80 billion mechs.
And the mechs changed color based on, because Hero and 02's connection, I guess through the power of love, it gave the robot an upgrade. And that's a very interesting point that I wouldn't even think to bring up, how a lot of mechs like to dive at least some degree of how these things function, or there's some scenes in explaining it. For them, it's just they're robots. Have fun.
Yeah, basically it's just they're robots, and we later find that they're built from klaxosaur parts.
Yes,
right?
That's a very big mecha thing. That's actually a big anime thing in general, where they essentially weaponize the enemy. I mean, I can name several anime that have done that in the past. And I wasn't too surprised. I kind of had a feeling that's where it was going, and luckily it definitely didn't take me out of the show at all, because there's a lot I will give the show credit. There was some moments that had me invested very hard.
Yes, and
as corny as it was, I thought 02 and Hero carried this show for me, because the two of them are goddamn adorable at times.
Yeah,
they really
I think
are.
That is the main relationship in this show.
It's what the whole show really revolves around.
No matter how much Ichigo tries, that is the main relationship in the show.
I have to ask, when Ichigo went in, yes, the short little blue-haired girl who we all know and love, when she went in for that and laid a fat one on our boy Hero, how'd you feel?
I was kind of expecting it. It
Yeah.
really didn't shock me that much, honestly. Like the fact
yeah.
that I talked to you today and you were like, yeah, that set the internet on fire. Really, for me, it was just like, I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
No,
I
it,
mean,
it made sense for me too.
I mean, he's not gonna be with her,
No,
and like we all knew that.
he's not
from the very
interested.
beginning.
Yeah,
he's not. He's very not interested.
He's got his eyes on the horny half klaxosaur girl.
Exactly. And you know, yeah, it didn't really do much for me. It was okay. I mean, I think Ichigo and Hiro's relationship was interesting, but it just didn't have me at the same level that like Hiro and 02 were at, which is, you know, because what I think was your favorite episode of the series was the origin story of 02, kind of, when she's like the little like red girl and she's like has the picture book and everybody's like taking it away from her and she's like, no, that's the only thing I have, and then Hiro breaks her out and they escape together.
Bravo, Bouncy, you know me so well. Yes. Yeah. So episode 13 is what we're referring to here, and before as John was going through the show, I told him, yeah, I have one episode here that I absolutely adore, and like I said, 02 and Hiro carry the show, and we get their origin story, and it is just one of the most goddamn adorable things I've ever seen. Yes. Corny as it is, as Bouncy just described, she's this little like hybrid creature that it created in a lab. So she's kind of a wild beast in some ways, but she has one caretaker who always, provided over her, fed her, and read her pages of the storybook. And so then they try to take the book away from her. They take the caretaker away. And so she's just this miserable little monster child that Hiro, as a child himself, winds up discovering. They break out of like this experimentation place to like this, basically they call it the garden where all the kids are raised in this world. So they break out together, and it's just like 20 minutes of the most adorable goddamn thing I've ever seen.
It really is, for my money, too, the best episode of the series by distance. It's my favorite. I think you were right. I think when we talked about doing the show, you said to me, okay, so you start out and you're like, and then it gets like, ooh, this is good, and this is really good, and then it just goes like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. That was the emotional arc of the show for me entirely, and I'm glad you had something similar.
It had a rising and falling action, but not in the terms of like a narrative does, in terms of my emotional attachment towards.
And you could say quality of the show.
Right.
Well, it's tough to say that because the show does, as the series goes on, the visual spectacle becomes pretty impressive.
Yes.
But it just, nothing is making sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of bright flashing images on screen and everything looks good, but if you shut your brain off, it works. But if you think about any aspect of the narrative, it's like, wait, what's happening?
It's actually weird that it doesn't work. I think I got a few like favorite moments, and also just some just general hot takes that I can give you right now.
Go for it.
Okay, my favorite part in the entire series.
Okay.
So episode 13 was my favorite episode, but my favorite part in the entire series, specifically because of how much it made me laugh.
Okay.
Was so when Dr. Franxx has his origin episode and he talks about building the Franxx and stuff like that, right? They go find the queen of the klaxosaurs or whatever.
Yes.
They're commissioned by Ape, which is just another thing we'll get to. But Ape, fucking Ape, commissions them to go find the klaxosaur queen, right?
Yes.
And they do, and they find her, whatever. She kills everybody else but him.
Yeah.
And then she just rips his arm off, and then he repairs himself as a klaxosaur, right?
Yes.
And then, fast forward to the last like maybe 3 episodes where he confronts the queen again after she invades, after she comes out.
Right.
And he's like, hey, look, I made myself a klaxosaur to be able to pilot not Starlitzia.
Yeah.
It's Star. Star.
Drawing some blanks.
Whatever.
Well,
Star Entity.
Star Entity, yeah.
So he's like, I made myself a klaxosaur to pilot Star Entity with you together because I I have such an affinity for you.
Right.
And then she rips his arm off again. It's the funniest shit. I was like, dude's just taking L's everywhere.
I remember that scene entirely.
Imagine just getting the same arm ripped off twice by the same person. That's just funny. That's comedy.
Well, the show had some very funny moments.
It did.
The show, like you mentioned the laundry episode earlier, this show is not short of comedy. And that's what it's interesting with the show. I have no idea what tone they were going for half the time.
Neither do I, because every once in a while you would have an episode like I think the place where it kind of reached that point of like the two parts of the show intersecting was that wedding episode.
Oh yeah,
where like Mitsuru and Kokoro are about to get married.
Yes,
and the SWAT team comes in and they're like, "You guys are about to fuck, so come back here."
So none of that.
So let's erase that memory from you.
Yep, and we learn, and that's how we get some confirmation that in this world all the adults have eternal life.
Yes,
and these kids are basically sacrificial lambs.
Right.
And there's been a ton of them before them. They're going to keep like sending these children to die.
Exactly.
Which is very interesting. So yeah, they don't want humans fucking anymore. And
I thought that was a very interesting plot point about the desertification.
Yeah.
And stuff like that of all the cities like being deserted over time because the population was so huge because of immortality and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
No, it's neat.
I liked a lot of that kind of stuff in the show.
Yeah.
I guess more of the things that I wasn't so keen on was that honestly, like a lot of the characters were fine. Some of them I liked more than others, but
I said that with a very interesting look on your face.
I think
fine.
Let's talk about the characters.
Sure. Let's go over them. Oh yeah.
Okay.
We already talked about Hero and Zero 2. We can leave them.
Yes.
Let's talk about our supporting cast.
Yeah, supporting cast. Let's talk about. Well, actually, let's talk about Hero.
Oh sure. Our main.
Yeah, because I am very critical of all protagonists in any sort of form of media.
Yes.
And Hero to me is kind of a trash character. He's kind of a not necessarily a trash character, a trash person, I guess. Because throughout the course of the entire show, and Goro, I think, says it perfectly in that one episode where he's like, listen, like, we're all trying to, like, get food and, like, build a life together, and you're going to space.
Yeah.
You're going to find 02.
Yeah.
And he gives them this entire huge speech about it, and I'm like, yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
Hero does kind of suck. Dude's just out for himself, and like
he does think with his wiener the entirety of the series.
He's like, I got all these questions, and I gotta answer them, and I gotta have my like half klaxosaur demon babe by my side doing all of it, and which made me be like, wow, you know what? Goro may be my favorite character, but then literally 5 seconds later, they were like, we'll come with you.
Yeah, I remember that. They're like, you guys are coming too? Hero has his big bright eyes, and they cast like, yeah, sure, why not? We'll help you. We'll help you fuck off into space. So again, the show doesn't know what it's doing half the time because these characters flip on a dime. It feels
they do, and that brings me to Goro, who may be my favorite character of the series by the end of it.
I was shocked because as we mentioned before on the show, we often text while we're watching, especially for the longer series.
Yeah, totally.
We usually exchange notes and just like have fun. Most of your messages revolved around Goro. And I was so taken with your fascination in Goro. I'm like, Goro's really resonating with Bouncy here. This is kind of cool.
No, my big thing with Goro was he ended up probably being one of my favorite characters, but he totally should have died.
Yes, you said that. You brought that up when you were on episode like 6 or 7. You're like, Goro has to die.
Yes.
And there is the one episode where he gets very close, and I'm like, oh, Bouncy's going to be so upset.
Yes. I know. He got very close to dying in one episode. Ichigo came and saved him. Yeah. And I was like, he should have died.
He should have died.
Goro in the series, I feel like there was a lack of consequences for all the characters in the show.
Yeah.
There was never a point, even when they were like got captured by like, you know, the adults and like got put back in the garden and stuff and like straightened out a bit and like memories erased.
Yeah.
There was no real consequence. None of them died. None of them faced like incredible like sorrow, adversity in that. They faced adversity, but not
tremendous sorrow, no.
I just feel like it would have been so much better if there were actual stakes applied.
Like if someone did die.
If Goro died, or if like Zorome, or like even Miku. What did Miku do for the whole series? She's the red-haired one.
Oh, thank you. I very rarely do I feel my facial expression. My face when he said Miku, ladies and gentlemen, went blank. I'm like, who? But I mean, the redhead girl who did nothing.
There was no like, you know, Futoshi, Kokoro, Mitsura, like there was no character. I feel like there could have been at least one death among the squad, maybe 2.
Ikuno could have died.
Ikuno could have died too.
Yeah, she could have sacrificed herself.
You know, no, Rob, she couldn't have died. She was too busy being a lesbian. A surprise lesbian, mind you.
Again, a little late reveal where they're just like, oh yeah, She also has the hots for Ichigo. I'm like, okay, so this is now. You mentioned it earlier. It went from just like a love triangle to like a tetrahedron.
It made no sense. And it was never mentioned again.
No,
it was never touched on again.
It was brought up and then dropped like a
easily dropped.
Oh,
God.
The thing is that they did a lot of characters. They threw their personality traits on the table and said, "Here it is." Like you mentioned, my boy Futoshi. Props to the show for including a 1970s style fat kid character. And I hate to generalize the dude, but he was just the fat kid character. They had a fat kid in this show.
But he also had like, same with Ikuno. He had like probably like a 5-minute window where you were like, is there something different about his character? When he was just like bulimic.
Yeah,
at some point in the show, he was just refusing to eat because and Zorome was like, "I know you're just gonna throw it up again." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
And they just never mentioned it again.
Yeah, then he just goes back to housing their rations. Yeah, Futoshi.
Everybody, what I did like was that every side character besides Miku got some character development.
Yeah, Miku really didn't get any, did she?
She did not.
When I was going over the show again and reliving my favorite moments and seeing the characters' progression. Everyone got something really, except for Miku.
Yeah, she got nothing. She just
she was there,
was loud and annoying the whole time.
Yeah, no, she was. I guess you could say she was a foil to
Zorome.
Zorome, yeah. She was kind of his foil, I guess. Where Zorome, she was a loud, obnoxious one to balance out Zorome's obnoxiousness. So I guess she was needed, but they did the numbers. They realized they needed a set amount of characters, but they just didn't have anything for her.
Yeah.
So that was unfortunate, but Zorome, I like Zorome. Zorome was annoying to me at first, but then he got that cool episode where he met an adult.
Yes.
So that was a really cool episode because that said so much about the lore and their society without really having to do a lot.
That was really cool, and I completely agree. I feel like that was also one of my favorite episodes.
That was a good one, yeah.
Where like you got to just like see a little more into like what is this city. Who are the people that live here and like what do they do kind of?
I wasn't very big on the episode when I first saw it, but weirdly enough, when I thought about it again, I'm like, okay, that was actually pretty smart and pretty cool.
It was interesting.
It really did a lot to build the world. And something I just noticed, which is pretty funny. This show was a mecha action series, and you and I so far, we've agreed all the best part had nothing to do with the robots.
It really didn't.
It was all the character stuff.
There was no robot part. Well, maybe one robot part.
Are you referencing what you may have just witnessed?
I think I am.
Oh, okay.
When Hero and 02 reunite in space, and then their mecha it becomes just a big waifu.
Yes, a giant robot waifu
in space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I was honestly waiting for you to say something about that.
I think
you texted me a very quick note this morning. I'm like, he saw the giant robot waifu. Now we know who's infinitely is going to be best girl.
My only thing was, why are the boobs out? Why are the boobs out?
Because
there's no protection from the. It's a robot. You need to have a shield on this armor on a robot.
Don't you get it? This show's about sex.
You're right,
so,
it is.
It's a lot of weird sexual metaphors, but it's
is.
so on the nose where it's distracting. That's my big thing with the whole like sexuality aspect. There's no subtlety here.
There's really no subtlety.
They're using if the metaphors they're using are just so fucking obvious. I'm like, okay, we just talk about sex, and then of course we actually do have two characters that later have sex. They produce children.
Right.
Yes.
I will say, I do like Mitsura's character arc quite a bit. I do think it's a bit dumb. But like from
just a bit dumb.
From like 30,000 like whatever 30,000 feet high view or something.
Yeah,
it's interesting. But I mean, just on that whole thing about him promising Hero Hero promising him like, oh, he was like, Hero, can we pilot together when I'm back from my injections?
Yeah,
which is just a weird thing to say.
Yes,
and Hero was like, yeah, dude. And then literally they were like, what, like 6?
Yeah,
and now they're like 16. And Mitsura's like, he doesn't remember that he wanted to pilot with him.
Exactly.
Just stupid.
And it's not even Hero's fault because he had a lot of his memory wiped, so he couldn't remember it. And I can Mitsuru. He was a very emotional character. He was driven entirely by his emotions, and hence why once Kokoro hopped on him like me
at a CC's pizza buffet.
Exactly. Thank you. I couldn't come up with a comparison there. why do I want CC's now? Anyway,
I've never had it.
oh, neither have I.
But you want to go?
No, we're we live in New York. I think my pizza quota is met, my friend.
Yeah, you're right. For
But
the
so
day.
yeah, so for Kokoro, she was also a character I have to bring up because she was just funny. Her and Futoshi were originally pilots, and Futoshi's like, let's always pilot together forever, and she's like, absolutely, Futoshi, the same episode. Ikuno, if I remember correctly, it was Ikuno and Mitsuru weren't working together that well as partners, so Kokoro's like, I'm in.
Yep.
I want Mitsuru to ride me. Futoshi's like, come on. You just said we were partners forever.
So funny.
That was hysterical. I don't know if they intended that, but
Oh
it
my
came
God.
across as tremendous comedy.
It was
like,
so
where
funny.
Futoshi's there, like, what? And then they have so yeah, they start piloting together. They do the butt thing where they bump the uglies, and Mitsuru shoots one in her, and she gets pregnant. And okay, I think I took out Bounty with that line.
Well, that's the thing too,
Mhm.
because Kokoro for like
Mhm.
10 episodes,
Yeah.
we would just see weird scenes of Kokoro like reading this book that she found in an abandoned city that they found during the beach episode. But they
oh
found
my God, the beach.
they went to the beach and they had the beach episode, classic. But Kokoro found like a book in like the abandoned city that they went to about
Yes.
pregnancy.
Yes.
And she's reading it and she's like, we see like scenes of her like reading it, we see scenes of her hiding it, and then
Yeah.
eventually she like comes out and says to like the nines and like that
Yeah.
whatever that guy is, Alpha 9
Oh
Alpha.
yeah.
Which I have a note about too.
Perfect.
He's another character I want to get into.
Sure.
But when she's like, oh no, like pregnancy is a real thing. The book is like on like what pregnancy is.
Yeah,
and, like,
reproduction, right?
childbirth.
Yep.
And I was like, did you just believe everything you read in a book?
Yeah.
I mean, like, like not that you're not wrong,
Mhm.
but like it's like reading stuff on Wikipedia and being like, oh,
Yeah.
I know everything about
Yeah,
this
it's
now.
also didn't we have this like a very similar plot device with two other characters with the book? I mean, why are the books?
There's another book.
Yeah, there's
another book.
so many books.
And like, okay, because also that book, didn't 02 say she ate that book? She literally ate that book. She at one point she was like, I didn't want to lose it, so I ate it. And Hiro was like, that's nice.
Hero did play it super cool. It's like, okay, no, yeah, she did eat the book. I forgot him. And then there's a cute scene of them. She's like redrawing the book. I'm
Yep.
like, oh, this is so horribly corny,
Yeah.
but I love it. But anyway, back.
Hiro just saw all these red flags and just vaulted right over them.
He was
just-
he was also mutating, but
yeah, I mean that too.
he said, cool. I guess I'll be a blue dinosaur now. He was just super into it.
Blue dinosaur.
He was a blue klaxosaur, whatever the fuck they're called in this show. Our baddies, but we learn maybe not our baddies, maybe actually the protectors of mankind. Remember, because the main enemy turns out it was
Verm.
yeah.
Who the fuck is Verm? Verm.
We met our real antagonist at episode 20 of a 24 episode series.
That was
To call it rushed is the understatement of all time.
legitimately the most confusing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They were like, and it was so funny because like when they got revealed as the absolute enemy, Verm, everyone was like, "Oh, Verm." I was like, "What do you mean, oh, Verm? Who are these
What do you
people?
mean?
They don't have faces." And like, do you just expect me to believe that this faceless being was controlling one of the guys in Ape?
Yeah.
Took the time,
Yeah.
took his damn sweet 50 years of time to somehow slowly take over the government of the entire Earth and eventually put everybody into plantations around the Earth,
Yeah.
abandon all the cities, and harvest magma from the Earth's core to power human society, only to, in 50 years, take over the planet? He could have done that 50 years ago when everybody was more vulnerable. That makes no sense.
But we wouldn't have had Hero and 02 to combat this force. Then we wouldn't have had a show.
But then, but they also said they were like, Verm was here before and had a war with the klaxosaurs like millions of years ago,
And lost.
and they lost. But like, they didn't come back. It seemed like they could take over the Earth just fine.
Exactly.
So why didn't they just come? It's been 10 million years.
Yeah.
They should have just come back
Yep. But
and just did it.
It seems like one guy in the office of Verm like got a wild idea here. Let me handle this. I can get us the Earth. And then he had this, like you said, the wildly convoluted plan of like giving humans immortality, but then harvesting, kind of using, then just taking over the world by aspect of them growing so weak they can't defend themselves anymore, which is a little confusing.
Talk about long game.
Yeah, talk about long game.
God.
Even in me trying to explain it right now, I realized how hard it was to follow.
It's very hard to follow. And you said it perfectly. You were like a guy at the office at Verm.
Yeah.
Verm sounds like a law firm.
Yeah.
It sounds like a damn like consulting firm where you don't know what everybody's job is.
Well, it's because we had Verm and Ape. We had all these different organizations running around.
Ape. And they were all dressed as monkeys.
They all looked like monkeys.
They all had monkey faces.
They had monkey masks.
They were and they're like, there's that one episode where they talk about the rise of Ape, where they're like shaking hands with the president of the United States, and it's like, this guy's just wearing a monkey mask.
He's dressed as a big monkey.
He's a big monkey.
I said that guy. Again, by that point, when they showed that in the series, there was already so much nonsense going on where I saw a man in a monkey mask. I'm like, for this show, that just makes sense.
Yeah, it's just fine. We'll let that slide.
It's just so par for the course. It's stupid. It's wildly absurd, but this entire show is completely absurd.
Yes. And one thing that we did forget to touch on was 9 Alpha.
Oh, we didn't even touch on the Nines, who were
Nines.
Yeah, they were this other. Like we said, we had our main cast of characters, Squad 13, I believe was their squad number.
Squad 13.
And at the same time we had the Nines. I guess you could say a more elite.
Yeah. Like an
force.
elite, like Papa's Guard, basically.
Yeah, and then they had the more uniform mechs.
They had like red suits, and all their mechs were the same.
Yeah, all the mechs were uniform. They didn't have all the weird, vibrant colors that that Squad 13 had. Didn't buy one of those model kits, by the way. I may have looked at the price for the main ones. What was the name?
Starlitzia?
Starlitzia. I looked at Starlitzia. I thought, maybe I'll build it. Maybe
that was
not.
The coolest of them. It was still kind of dopey, but it was the coolest
all
of
them.
them.
Were dopey.
Yeah, they're all so dumb. Like, I love how Ichigo still had like the hair in front of her face.
Yeah, she had the bang.
I was like, that can't be good for combat. You can't even see. It's just so dumb.
It's just silly.
Stupid.
Yeah, so we had the Nines, this elite fighting force, and their leader, 02 at one point, was one of the Nines.
Yes.
She was 9 Iota, as Alpha reminded us constantly.
Yes. And the main character of the Nines is 9 Alpha, who of course comes into the series kind of early on, maybe episode 6 or 5. We see traces of him, but he plays a bigger part later, though. Obviously,
yeah. I liked how they introduced the Nines, and it was great because it also served to give more backstory to 02 of how she piloted with so many people before Hero, and they all kind of died.
Yeah, they all just died, and he was and Hero was the first one to survive 3 rides. Yeah,
3 rides with 02.
Yes, because once you get to 3, apparently you die.
Apparently you die because she just sucks all your life force out of you.
Yeah, because she's looking for her darling, who was, of course, Hero this whole time.
And wasn't that just so neat? Your face. There's like 4 different emotions on your face right now, and I don't know what they are.
I really want to like it.
I really want to like it. But yeah, so you mentioned. Let's go back because you did. You mentioned a few things about before we started today. I brought up 9 Alpha briefly, and Pouncy aggressively told me to stop talking because he had something to say about him. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay. All right, Rob.
Okay.
So 9 Alpha, the entire series, just like being a sassy little bitch. He's going around, he's being like, "Oh, are you really with this squad now, Iota?" And this
yes, we should clarify. We watched the dub.
Yeah. Yeah, we did watch the dub.
Actually, I kind of watched both.
Cool.
I watched the dub, and then I did watch a few episodes of it in the original Japanese because I wanted to get the. I wanted to make sure any weird translation notes I thought that might have existed, and also I wanted an excuse to watch episode 13 again.
If I could give 9 Alpha like a 3 character combination, he would be from any universe.
Okay.
He is Stewie Griffin from Family Guy.
Yes.
Plus Pegasus from Yu-Gi-Oh. Plus Kiba from High School DxD.
Wow. Okay, I did not expect you to drop Kiba so casually or remember who that is.
He is the perfect form. Kiba for the looks.
Yeah,
he is the perfect formation of those 3, and he has the Pegasus, Stewie Griffin, kind of voice.
Iota.
We're definitely hamming it up, but it does sound like that.
No, we totally are, but it's not that far off.
And it's not too long where you see him the first time and you're like, all right, I feel like I'm gonna hate this guy.
Yeah.
And a few times you see him later, you're like, oh, I definitely hate this guy. And there was one episode where he he was like the main antagonist at like a single episode because he was like, I told Papa about you guys getting married, and he's gonna have your memories erased.
Yeah.
And literally right after that, it killed me to no end because so that happened, and I was like, oh my god, I hate this guy so much.
He was a heel, big heel.
And then it cut to him piling a Franxx and him bottoming. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm fine.
I think everything's all right. All is forgiven.
I think I'm good.
I love you just casually called it bottoming.
That's what it is.
It is.
It's bottoming.
Iota. Sorry, now I opened my first beer, ladies and gentlemen, of the day, so I'm just going to start going, Iota. As much as possible. Yeah, I had Alpha was one of the villains that I loved to hate. Whenever he showed up, I was mad, but I was happy I was mad.
Yes.
So it was a positive kind of hatred. Like I said with heel. It's like a good villain in wrestling. You enjoy to hate them.
Yes.
Then I definitely got that with Alpha. He was a great little side character to have throughout the series, and I think towards the end, didn't he and the other Nines kind of help out with Squad 13's mission to like save?
They did.
Yep.
For the Grand Crevasse.
The Grand Crevasse.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So he had his little redemption arc in there, which I think was well done.
Yeah, it was. It was. And there are a few more things I want to talk about. Okay. One last big theme was the bird imagery.
Yes.
So
yes, the legend. It's an old Japanese
right.
folk tale, I believe, or something. It's something to do with Japanese mythology, where it's the bird that needs excuse me.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, the two birds, each with a broken wings, and they need each other. They need each other to fly.
So, and like that's what Hero and Zero Two are very clearly.
Yeah, that was like the first thing they mentioned in the show, where they each had different perspectives on it. Where Zero Two thought it was a beautiful thing, but Hero actually thought it was kind of pathetic, that codependency, and that was very interesting because that got me thinking about the entire series in that regard, in terms of like because the message there is, it's kind of weird because I don't know how I feel about it. Like the two people needing each other, it's cute and very romantic, but it's also basically how do I phrase this? They're glorifying codependency in a way.
They really are. And
so that whole theme, I don't know how to feel about that because it's really cute, but at the same time, I'm not a big fan of that message.
Right.
Yes, there are times you need help from others. That's a good message to send. Hey, sometimes you need people to help you. Totally fine. Just like, but the way they phrase it though, just like absolutely needing that other person. I'm like, okay, codependence there. I'm not a big fan of that message, but the thing is, for those two characters, I get it.
Yeah.
And like I said, they were just so fucking cute together, so I give them a lot of leeway here. But that's a very interesting point to bring up with the bird imagery.
And codependency is a big part of the show too, because you need two people to pilot the klaxosaurs, especially like that. Yeah. But like the most intriguing part of that theme to me was when the queen of the klaxosaurs came out, and Hero was having a conversation with her, just like seeing her thoughts and whatnot. And he was like, "Oh, so you've just been like living alone, for the past like millions of years?" And she was like, "Yes, us klaxosaurs only pilot alone, because we feel that yields better results." Mm-hmm. And I guess it hasn't at this point, up till this point. And I was like, "Okay, but like, I don't know. Your guys' army is pretty freaking good.
Yeah,
like,
you guys
got a lot of.
You guys got a lot of.
You had that huge hand thing.
Yeah, you guys got a lot of
There's a
W's.
big hand, that big arm that just like slapped things. Like I swatted things like a fly.
Yeah, it's the final boss.
I don't know how Verm. It is Master Hand.
Master Hand.
I don't know how Verm got past that, but
I don't know how Verm did it either. But
freaking Verm. God, best lawyers in the business, I swear.
Have you been injured in a klaxosaur battle? Call Verm. We'll get you a settlement and your own plantation.
No face, we're ace. And I just have a few more things.
Go for it.
Before we get to the big, was it bad or not?
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Two more notes, quick notes, very quick notes. My big notes on this entire show. Klaxosaur Princess and Zero Two are like Sonic and Shadow the Hedgehog. Haha.
I totally get that.
That was that.
That was that.
Theme song bangs.
Oh yeah, the theme actually. Like I mentioned this off camera. I believe because this show got nominated for a ton of awards when it came out.
That's awesome.
And I believe one thing they did win is best intro of the season.
They deserve it. The theme is really good.
I loved it when they incorporated it into episode. I believe it was 15 or 16. Once Hero finds 02 because she went rogue because she thought she killed. She was under the assumption Hero wanted nothing to do with her anymore.
Right.
Because she was basically going crazy with killing all these klaxosaurs. And the very touching moment where Hero finds her, it's like, no, we have to work this out. I'm in love with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the two of them pilot Starlitzia, and it turns red. I guess through the power of love.
Yeah. Right.
And they use the intro, like they use the theme song in that battle. And I'm a big sucker for that, mainly because I grew up a Super Sentai and Power Rangers fan. It's where they always use the theme song in the big battles. So once that happened, I was like, fucking, this theme song just slaps. It works. It's so weird that it works so well in that action context.
And what I did like, and this is more an attribution to like the art behind the show too, which I thought was very good. I think the animation was incredible, but the intro changed 3 times throughout the course of the show. Like the song remained the same, but the intro like montage changed every time, and it accurately characterized what was happening at that point in the show. It was like kind of even within 24 episodes, it felt like 3 different arcs.
Yeah,
which was very cool.
That was a great touch.
Even if the last arc was stupid, it was very cool.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really appreciate. I mean, there's no better way to sum up that last arc. Just dumb.
It was just dumb. It was very stupid. Although, as I said at the very beginning of the show, the last episode still got me emotionally a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about the last episode. Let's go back to this because
let's go back to that.
What did you think of how the whole thing ended, especially with? For me, all the emotion, of course, came from. Actually, no. I'll give the side cast credit. It was cool to see them basically building a new society.
Yeah,
because all the, I forget exactly how this was done, but basically all the other adults there, like Verm, essentially like absorbed their consciousness and absorbed their energy. So they're basically all the former adults are gone. So there's a small group of parasites left, and it's like, all right, let's just rebuild society now, and they did, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And they did like an 8-year time skip, and everyone was just like having babies.
Everyone was popping out, kids looking older. Futoshi got a mustache.
Futoshi got a mustache. I popped so hard for the mustache.
It looked good on him.
It looked good. It was really becoming of him.
Yeah, he just became an anime dad.
He really did. And Ikuno in the last battle shot a laser. But Futoshi was in the same Franxx as her. Yeah. But she shot a laser to break through a wall. And she shot that laser so hard that that she just became an old lady for some reason.
Oh, right. She got rapidly aged.
And like in the last episode, 8 years went by, and she's like in a hospital bed. So like, didn't work out great for her.
No.
But for everybody else, like, yeah, they're doing all right. Zorame's like a teacher. Miku's just still the same.
What would have been the problem there with Ikuno dying? Because like I think that's what they should have did there. Because I brought this up earlier. Ikuno could have died, and
yes,
and that plot point especially. Why not just have her die?
See that is exactly raise the stakes. That was the So the last episode, like how the show ended. I kind of dug the time skip. I dug the where are they now kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The Hero 02 stuff of them just like, you can assume that they're basically dead.
Yeah.
And that their spirits are traveling around the universe together or something.
Yeah.
But then they.
But then their souls finally reach Earth again.
Right.
And they go back to that tree, or like that they planted like several thousands of years earlier at that point, or 1,000. I forgot how long it was. But then you see like their souls finally land towards a tree, and you see 2 human kids running around, and they're the reincarnations of 02 and Hero. And they meet for the first time. The show fades to white, and it's over.
Yeah.
And I gotta say again, corny as it may be, fucking loved it. It was adorable.
It was very adorable, and I get emotional at the end of every show.
Yeah.
Besides Violence Jack, and I got.
No, there was emotion there.
There was. I guess.
Definitely emotion there. It was. It was
a different kind of emotion.
I feel that for you it was relief. Me it was disdain.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do we have to keep bringing up Violence Jack? Anyway. I thought I can go one fucking episode without bringing it up. And, well, that's fine. You did it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Fans, people listening, brothers, sisters. I didn't do it. Good job, Bouncy. Proud of you.
Thank you. Anyways, the ending got me, and like when the trees like Sakura leaves like falling off and stuff, I was like, this is beautiful imagery. The passage of time is really neat, and I really enjoyed it. The part where like they were reincarnated as kids didn't really like, I don't know, like make me feel as like emotional, but like the scenes before that, I was like,
gotcha, man,
like what a ride we've been on.
Yeah. And the 2 of them in space, like saying, "Well, our souls will meet again on Earth." I mean, how do you not love that?
Yeah, I really like it because the cycle of the Earth has kind of started again.
Yes,
where it's like they were.
It's a modern society.
Exactly.
They're back to like regular society,
which legitimately makes me think that like nobody's immortal, right?
Yeah.
Anymore. People are dying off, and they're back to like regular society, which they were at before, but before they started mining magma energy and they messed it all up.
Yeah.
But like now, it went from like small towns to like bigger towns to cities now, and I'm like, okay, they're just gonna do the same thing again.
Yeah. The world is just gonna repeat itself.
The cycle's just gonna repeat itself
unless they put up like a big sign saying "Don't touch the magma."
But there's so again like with all the emotional happiness that I felt like through this show sometimes.
Yeah.
The logic was just so weird because like why the klaxosaurs, why did they appear just now? Why didn't they appear when they started mining magma energy?
Yeah.
Why were they attacking the humans? Were they getting them to stop mining magma energy, or were they like trying to do because like in their attacks against the klaxosaurs, they probably had to mine more magma energy.
Yeah.
So like, what was their point of the klaxosaurs essentially?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a little confusing where the klaxosaurs didn't know what the humans were doing, and it could have been a little bit of the classic metaphor, like man's the real monster sometimes.
Yeah.
So there was I feel like that's a very Devilman-esque.
The problem I had was it was getting to that.
Yeah.
And I kind of dug that. And like the humans are the monsters for like, imprisoning these klaxosaurs.
And mining
like,
their energy.
These klaxosaurs, I had a theory early on that klaxosaurs were other humans that were just put underground or something like that.
I remember you mentioned that.
And
then it was aliens.
Then it was just verm.
then they brought up that idea. Again, it's an idea that's been done to death in anime. I bring up. There's too many to bring up. But then they just said, instead of going into that theme, they're like, we could try to be smart about this and say humans are the bad guys. Or we could just blame aliens and absolve humans of any fault whatsoever. And that's what they did. Kudos, maybe, for being that bold. I don't want to say stupid, even though that's what my thought is. I mean, it's kind of dumb. But generally, I mean, I'm going to get into it right now. Kind of dumb. That's a thing we've been saying a lot today, haven't we?
Yeah, we've been saying that quite a bit.
Is this show just kind of dumb?
It's more than kind of dumb. It's really dumb.
Yeah.
It's really dumb. But is it bad?
See, I've been thinking about this all day. I actually had to think about this all day. And what I'm going to say is this. I think this show is trash, but everyone should watch it. I do think this show is bad. It honestly might be kind of a good, bad anime to introduce to people. Because here's the thing. There is a lot of things in the show that I loved. Particularly the interpersonal dynamics with a lot of the characters. Again, I haven't shut up about 02 and Hero yet. I think that was fucking adorable.
Mm-hmm.
So I can recommend the show off the strength of that alone. This show is bad. Because it's just juggling way too much. It is over-ambitious, and it flew way too close to the sun. I really respect it for what it tried to do, but it tried to do all these elements that it really could not handle. I think the show is bad in that respect because the logic is all over the place. Motivations are weird. They try to bring in philosophical themes and then just don't know how to pay any of them off. And then they just brought in aliens for the last 4 episodes for no fucking reason. This show is bad because it's not a well put together show. It's a great looking show.
Mm-hmm.
The theme song's a banger. I don't remember too much of the rest of the musical score in it, but wasn't bad by any means. It was just there. It was good, but the show just it didn't know what it was doing. It felt like it didn't know what it was doing half the time. It had a couple really fun characters, a couple cool editing choices. Yes, it was kind of derivative of other anime, but I think if you're gonna say to someone what a bad show is, but one that's still fun enough to watch, I feel like this is a good bad anime to recommend to people because I feel like being part of an anime fan, hence this show, is experiencing bad anime because it's out there. And this is not a bad choice to start with. If you're looking to show someone anime that isn't great, I think this is a good one because there's a lot of fun stuff in it. It's a fun show. It is a fun show. It's definitely bad. I think everyone should watch it.
That's a very interesting criticism.
Yeah.
I agree with you in a lot of points.
Yeah.
I really agree with you a lot about that. For me, was it a logistically sound show that was able to achieve everything it wanted to in a way that I thought was productive?
In a way that it intended is also the big thing.
In a way that it intended. No.
Yeah.
Did I get the answers to all the questions I have? No.
Mm-hmm.
Did I feel like it was rushed? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
However, it made me feel things.
Exactly.
I felt things, and for that, I can't say it's bad.
Gotcha.
I think, to me, if anybody was like, should I watch Darling in the Franxx? I would tell them, do it so we can talk about it.
There we go.
Not do it so that you could be enriched. Not do it so that you can find an anime that you'll go back to at all times and will be one of your favorite animes ever. Watch it so that you and me could crack a beer and sit down
and talk
about how silly it is.
Yes.
Because it is so silly, but at the end of the day,
I was invested.
I was very invested. Throughout the whole thing, there were a lot of cool things. I think I'm a sucker for dystopian storytelling. We found that out during the Violence Jack episode.
Yes.
I am an absolute sucker for like the desertification and like the reforming of cities and the immortal life. And I was the entire time it was going, no matter like how many silly robot things there were and how many like dumb boobs there were, like, the whole time I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, like what are the klaxosaurs? Like, why are they here? And I texted you this exactly. I was like, why do I feel like they're going to answer all of my questions, but badly?
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned that very early on, and I didn't know what reaction button to press.
And they did answer all my questions mostly, and it was just bad answers. They answered the big questions. There were a lot of questions I had, of course, that weren't answered, which I can forgive.
Honestly, I feel like sometimes it's better to leave things unanswered. I would rather leave some mystique behind it.
Exactly.
But the answers were not satisfying.
I mean, the big problem spots for me, Verm.
Yes.
The biggest was so dumb. I genuinely can't see. I saw a lot of comments about this anime, like on like the theme song page on YouTube, on like the around the internet. I was looking around for like reviews and opinions, and a lot of people have been saying that this is like one of their favorite animes of all time. And, more power to you. More power to you. But I don't know how after those last 4 episodes you could even think that. I think there is no way that this anime could be anywhere near the top of anybody's list. But I will say it was fun. I did enjoy myself. And for that reason and my emotional investment pending, I did not think it was bad. Gotcha. I thought it was pretty fine, pretty good.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't recommend it to somebody who wants to get their world exploded.
Gotcha. There is definitely an asterisk, like how to recommend the show to people. Like I said, I do it immediately just because I want people to experience the show, because this show is an experience.
It is.
It's just not inherently a good one. There's good stuff in it. It's just not a good show, but there's good characters doing stuff in it that I liked.
You know what would have made it really good? Goro died.
If Goro died, if Goro just died,
maybe it would have been good.
Maybe it would have been okay. So it's kind of a split decision on this one. It's kind of bad.
Yeah.
It's kind of
bad. I think the middle that we meet on is that it's kind of bad.
It's kind of bad. There's good, but we both
And I'm
agree.
okay with that.
Yeah, me too. There's good stuff in it. So I'm weirdly praising the show. I think you should go watch it. Some people maybe wouldn't recommend it to them. I probably would.
And if you're listening right now and you're like a big fan of the show and you're like, how could those guys talk about it in such a way? It's like, it's a perfect show. Let us know.
Yeah,
hit us up.
Please feel free to disagree. We're just 2 idiots here.
Yeah, so, we're just talking. We're just talking. So I mean, if you disagree with us, I'd be happy to hear some criticisms of our arguments. Happy to hear how you think that Darling in the Franxx did a great job of what it did, because I, for one, think it didn't do exactly a very good job. But again, as we said, it was fun. We had a good time, and we had a great time talking about it.
Exactly. I mean, I had a great time remembering episode 13.
Yeah.
Thanks. I hope you guys had much fun listening to this as we did, talking about the show and watching the show. Let us know. Hit us up what you guys thought about it, and if there's any other shows you want to recommend, please do. I need more mecha, and if it's not good, honestly, even better. I have a few in my back pocket, so if I see your comment and I like it, I'll let you know.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you soon.
It's bad. Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in klaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
In your Ear Podcast Network.